Who's wrong and who's wronger? In this corner, followed by millions, James the Exploding Unicorn Breakwell. And in that corner, ignored by millions, Steve Dash Rinko Levens.
Thanks for tuning into Wrong and Wronger. And I got a little bit of a problem. I'm on the lam right now. I was going to rob a bank, and there was this problem with my mask. And so I thought, well, I'll steal a car. Except I got into a cop car, and the cops were still in it. And I accidentally got in the back seat by mistake. It made my getaway a little more difficult, but I did get away, and I'm here on Wrong and Wronger, and you're here, and he's here, and I'm here, and it's really me underneath this. I know, it's been such a clever disguise. James, you're so delighted. You were scared for a minute and thought Steve's not here. There's like a convict with me.
Let me just say, this is my favorite costume of yours of all time, without exception. I think you should wear that for every podcast and just going around in life, just as you walk in public, so we don't have to see your face quite as much. It's like you blurred it for us. No video editing needed. That's a great service you have performed.
Nothing pixelated about it, but I know our two fans were worried for a minute, but it's me. I'm here. And everybody's here on the show where we debate about things that don't matter to anybody. And James, we have upped the ante on stuff that don't matter to anybody because I'm pretty sure we include our two fans too.
Yeah, this is going to be our least consequential debate ever. I will be shocked if we get anyone to listen to it. But in our unending spiral of self-reference, let's just dive right in. Which is better, Wrong and Wronger or 10 Minutes to Save Your Marriage?
Wow. You know, the most frightening thing about this debate is one of them has to win.
You know what? I got a message on Facebook the other day from somebody who she was telling me she's bought all the books. Not only did she subscribe to my email newsletter, she said she had listened to every episode of our podcast, Wrong and Wronger and 10 Minutes to Save Your Marriage. However, She did then suggest that we argue glasses versus contacts, which I'm pretty sure we argued. So maybe she was just so overwhelmed by the greatness of our episodes that she couldn't remember them all. Which is possible.
It's possible? Did you even go back and look?
No, it's possible we actually didn't argue that one. So here's how little thought we put in this podcast. She said that, and I suggested to you, and you're like, I think we already did that. I'm like, okay, and neither of us bothered to double check. That's how unprofessional we are. So we could have just passed by the idea of a lifetime by passing on glasses versus contacts. If we didn't do it, we'll do it next week, unless we forget, which we almost certainly will.
Well, James, it's not that we're irresponsible. It's that we're so busy with our creative endeavors.
Clearly, we're being overwhelmed, mostly just answering fan mail for these podcasts.
Well, it sounds like you were quite taken with her compliment. So
it was huge.
Good.
It was like 1,000-word long compliment. I was amazed, and then I kind of ended up insulting her on air right now, so now I feel terrible. She's probably my only real fan, and I am a monster. Please don't leave me.
Well, it's funny, the interns were both incensed also that I suggested they don't listen. Although one did say the only reason, we have to listen at least to the end so we know which numbers go to who, and I thought, well, there you go.
Why are we so awful? We have such a low listener base, and we just sit here and we're mean to them.
Well, we got no thumbs down again last week on YouTube, it was a great banner week.
How many votes do we get, like 4?
No, there were, how many thumbs ups do you mean?
Yeah, thumbs up, whichever.
When I looked this morning, there were 24 thumbs up,
Wow.
zero thumbs down, man. That's because of me.
You know what? I'm pretty sure I earned us the thumbs down now. The one person who listened to all the podcasts, like, you doubt me? Thumbs down all the way through.
Well, I do want to, if I could take 1 minute and get serious, and then we'll jump back into the frivolity, but I'm only going to say this in passing, and then I'm not going to dwell on. But our dog died a couple weeks ago in a really, really bad way. And I got 2 sympathy cards from 2 of our listeners, Superfan Judy P. and Laura S., the one for whom we were going to name the Wrong and Wronger birthing method after. They both sent to me and my family sympathy cards, and I thought that was a classy thing to do. So thank you to those 2. But back to the attack. So, James,
we have to compliment each other now. And I don't know. After all of that, I took the wind out of the room.
Yeah,
but I'm
let's
sure
talk
you
about
can
a dead
just-
dog for a second. That great lead-in, Steve.
You're going into a Casey Kasem rant.
What?
I was talking about his god-blessed dang dog, and now I got to go into this happy stuff.
You know
Did you
what?
ever hear
You know,
that?
yes, I heard that one. Oh, you finally made a reference that I got. Yes, I heard that. Yeah.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
James.
he was upset. He was not happy about that at all.
I know, but I'm beside myself that you got one of my pop culture references. That's not
to be
from
fair,
2 days ago.
You probably listened to it live in 1970, and I heard it like Greatest Radio Fails compilation in like 2014. But hey, we heard it.
Yeah, K-Tel put it out, sure. Well, just before we fired up, I said I'm going out to Palm Springs on Tuesday. I'm going to have coffee with the bass player from The Firm. And it was a super group that had Paul Rogers singing from Bad Company and Jimmy Page on guitar from Led Zeppelin. And he was also in a band called Blue Murder with John Sykes from Whitesnake. And James, what was your response to that?
I heard a Led Zeppelin. I got 1 out of the 9 bands. Come on. What do you want from me? Blue Murder? Is that a band? That's nothing. If I Google Blue Murder right now, is there going to be more than 0 results on Google?
We're not going to have this conversation again because there's already a little hole in my heart, and you're actually putting the jaws of life into it. You're tearing it open.
I guess we can take solace in the fact that no matter how mean we are to our fans, we're far more awful to each other. And I feel like that should even things out.
You know, I had a compliment for you. I don't even remember what it was now. So what is yours to me?
Oh, well, I would like to compliment you for for destroying the momentum of this podcast with a real sad story that I completely missed. I had no idea your dog died. I see your tweets pop up from time to time, and usually they're just depressing with, depressing hotel room, depressing being on the road. This is a whole nother level of depressing, and I didn't even catch it. So I guess my compliment to you is, there's got to be a compliment in there somewhere. I'm going to compliment you on being bold enough to not worry about being funny. You're like, you know what? We don't need humor on this podcast. Let's just run this thing into a brick wall, and we're going to keep going. So I admire your confidence that we can pull this off.
Wow, it actually happened it was my pinned tweet for a while because I tweeted nothing for 3 days in sort of memorial after that. Just had the pinned tweet up. So I'm glad. I'm going to compliment James on his level of oblivion. He doesn't watch movies. He doesn't watch TV shows. He doesn't listen to music. He doesn't even really read anybody else's tweets. James lives in a universe that has one occupant and a pig, and it's him.
So if you tweet, it can pop up on my timeline. What am I supposed to do? Geez, Steve hasn't tweeted in a while. Let me go check his pinned tweet and see if his pet died horrifically. Like, this is not a thought process normal people go through.
I know. It's a thought process that good, decent people go through.
Well, you have Judy P. and Laura S., and that's it.
Yes,
End of
I
list.
do. I actually got 3 sympathy cards, but one I don't think is from a listener of this show, but he listens to he's been on my other show. But anyway. All right, so that is the obligatory compliment. James, I have reinvigorated the Guam Quarter of Fate. I've gotten it from my bathroom counter downstairs because I know you were so distraught last week. But what shall the 2 sides of the Guam Quarter mean for you?
Heads, I'm arguing wrong and wronger is better. Tails, I'm arguing 10 minutes to save your marriage is
Love
better.
Boy, I don't even know which one you want.
None of the above.
You know, there was a Twilight episode, the old version with Rod Serling, where a guy flipped a quarter and it landed like by the way, you're arguing 10 minutes. It's on Guam. It landed like straight up and down, and he could hear other people's thoughts. And then the end of the episode was someone knocked the quarter over, and when it fell, he lost that power. But anyway, you, sir, are arguing. You've heard of Rod Serling, right?
Yes, I've heard of Rod Sterling. Don't ask me for any details about him.
Oh, my God. All right. Hey, and oddly, I've got a cigar. He smoked a cigarette during every episode. But you've got 10 minutes to save your marriage. What say you, James Breakwell?
Well, sometimes less is more, and sometimes less is better. Far, far
I can't even
better.
argue that.
Yes.
What are you doing?
Yeah, come on. So we got 10 minutes. Like, this podcast right here was originally like 25 minutes. We had to cut it down to 15 minutes. It was still too much. People can barely put up with 5 minutes of us. So 10 minutes to save your marriage was the smarter move. It's like, you know what? We're going to give this a cutoff point. Even if we don't always hit that, we give people hope. Like 10 minutes and I'm out. That's barely double digits. You listen to double speed, 5 minutes, in and out. It's amazing. It is the superior podcast because it builds on what we learned from Wrong and Wronger, which was virtually nothing. But we learned the lesson about going a little bit shorter, and we learned the lesson about maybe teaching a lesson of some kind. There's actual valuable content in 10 Minutes to Save Your Marriage. Sometimes. Sometimes people say they learn things. And also, this is going to be something that
Did
only...
they say that to you?
They imply it. It's heavily implied. But then, it's the one my parents listen to. My parents never listen to Wrong and Wronger, but they listen to 10 Minutes to Save Your Marriage. They drive in silence. My dad does. At least he would drive all the way back to my grandmother's house in Iowa, 5.5 hours in complete silence. Then my podcast came out, and he would listen to 10 minutes of podcast and then 5 hours of silence. Like, it was the only thing that wasn't silence on his trip. And ultimately, this is the one thing that you're going to think is great, and everyone else is going to disagree with it. But since I'm just trying to beat you, I'm going to lay it out there. 10 Minutes to Save Your Marriage has more of you. I read a question, and I just back off, and the floor is yours. And there's just like a deafening silence, and everyone listens to you. There's actually like 5 listeners for that podcast. It is the Steve Oliva Show, and I'm just orbiting around the edges. How can you argue against your own baby? All right, I'd like to hear you try.
Wow, it's not even my own baby, it's my own me. Well, first of all, James, I gotta say, your arguments are compelling. And Wrong and Wronger and me is just gonna barely edge you out this week. Unlike last week, where I kicked you like a something. Anyway, so Wrong and Wronger means I can assemble my thoughts and get them out in a funny way and put all the words in the right order. So Wrong and Wronger is the flagship. That is the first one that we tried, and we had to sort of figure things out. And so by the time 10 minutes came around, we knew what we were doing, and it was fine. Wrong and Wronger was starting a business with an empty office and 2 Home Depot buckets to sit on. Like, that was our origin story. That was you meeting me across a smoke-filled bar on the east side of Indianapolis. And you complaining. It took at least 12 minutes to complain about the 40-minute drive it took you to get over to my hotel.
You were on the other side of the world. What do you want from me?
I was in your town.
You were halfway to Nashville.
It is a good story, and it kicked off a beautiful acquaintanceship. But Wrong and Wronger comes out on Thursdays. 10 Minutes comes out Sunday night, Monday morning. People hate Monday mornings. 10 Minutes might be the only decent thing to a Monday for people. But Wrong and Wronger, man, when people listen to the Wrong and Wronger show, they are getting ready for the weekend. They're in a good mood. Thursday night football is coming up. The Titans are playing last week anyway. They got creamed by Jacksonville. But the point is that everyone is in that mode, and Wronger is part of that good, buoyant mood that people have. Wrong and Wronger has the better logo that was put together by a professional. That we got a graphic artist to dream it up and put it up. And who came up with the 10 Minutes logo? I can't even remember.
The same artist. You paid them. I did the initial layout, and you're like, okay, let me pay somebody to make this better. And then you paid the same person that did the other logo.
The other logo is killer, though. I show up to this podcast every week thinking this is the week I finally just storm out of here. I'll tell Breakwell to pound sand. But then I look at that logo behind you, James, and I'm just drawn to it, even though I don't even see you. And then lastly, Wrong and Wronger has Oliva's characters at the beginning of each one of them, and that's why we get sometimes even more than 2 viewers. They only watch the first 30 seconds of the show, and then they move on to something that has some actual entertainment value, i.e. less Breakwell, like 10 Minutes to Save Your Marriage. But for the time being, Wrong and Wronger is the flagship, and it's the one that people tune into to watch the range that Olivas has. What have you got against talent? Oh, wait a minute. That's almost redundant.
You know what? 10 minutes
rhetorical. Damn it.
You know what 10 Minutes to Save Your Marriage has that Wrong and Wronger will never have? A complete and utter freedom from your face. You can enjoy 10 Minutes to Save Your Marriage without any risk of ever seeing you or your stupid impressions. There's just nothing there. There's no video, and it's amazing. When we record it, you can sit there and slouch and turn off the lights and be as depressed as you want, and as long as your voice sounds normal, you're fine. You can just roll with it. But 10 Minutes to Save Your Marriage, I have to stand here, or Wrong and Wronger, I have to sit here and stare into this camera, and lights are burning out my retinas, and the whole time, I know that next to me, on this split screen, you're doing something awful that I'm going to watch and cringe like 3 days from now. I mean, Do you know, for all we know, we would have like thousands of listens a week if you would just stop doing those impressions. 10 Minutes to Save Your Marriage, no impressions. Complete impression-free zone, none of your face, none of your impressions, no video, period. That's why 10 Minutes to Save Your Marriage has what? Twice or 3 times the listenership of Wrong and Wronger? The numbers don't lie, Steve. The numbers don't lie.
It's north of that, actually.
Is it really? Wow.
Yeah.
We should put this podcast out of its misery. What are we even doing on here?
Oh, there ain't a gun big enough to take us out, James. All right, do the other thing that's so charming about Wrong and Wronger. Grab those delightful dice that most 9-year-olds with no hope of ever dating own.
You are very jealous of my dice. I'm going to send you a pair so you can see how great they are. You want to know what? Someday, there are entire podcasts with way more listens we have. Podcasts people make a living off of, and all they do is play Dungeons and Dragons. I would be fascinated to play Dungeons and Dragons with you. One gaming session.
Are you serious?
Yes, me and you. That'd be hilarious. Of course.
No, I mean that there's podcasts with that many sad, lonely, depressed people living
millions
in their
of
mother's
listens,
basement.
or at least hundreds of thousands. They make actual money off their podcast. They don't just sit here talking to themselves. Basically, everything we've ever done is wrong. If it sounds like a bad idea to you, there's probably somebody making millions of dollars off of it. Like, just use that as your guide for everything we do on the internet. Anyway, I'm going to roll the dice.
Can you play with 2 people?
Yeah, you technically can. We'd probably need somebody else. Maybe we pull your 13-year-old or somebody. Or I've got a few friends. I'd have to grab one of my friends who actually knows the rules. So I used to be the dungeon master. I was the one who made up the story, but my only job was to make up the story. I just refused to learn the rules, and that was kind of a problem long term. But we can get around that because you don't know what you're doing either. I'll just make it up as I go along.
Next time I'm at your house, we'll play for 15 minutes, because I'm sure it's a quick game because nobody wants to play longer than that.
Yeah, obviously. In and out. 15 minutes total. Anyway,
Yeah, okay.
If you want to vote for me and saying that 10 Minutes to Save Your Marriage is better, 49. If you want to vote for Steve, and I don't know why anyone ever would, to say that Wrong and Wronger is better, this very podcast you're watching right now, this awful video and audio stream, if you think this is better for some misguided reason, vote for 6. And if you want to throw your vote away, vote for 9.
I've had 6 so many times.
6,
It's 1/3 the number of the beast. All right. So James is 49, and remember that number because in 30 years he'll actually be 49. Your throwaway is 9, which is kind of where James is emotionally, and then me, where I always am. Just remember the number 6. And remember it a few times if you can. Do the math on that one. So, this has been another fabulous episode of the flagship podcast between best-selling author James Breakwell and a guy with pantyhose on his head. And so, until next week, when you can pay attention to all of this all over again after you go and vote for it, this is Steve Olivas, Dr. Steve, for James the Exploding Unicorn Breakwell, saying thanks for listening, thanks for watching, thanks for voting, Steve, and remember, 2 wrongs can